civil service for over 4 decades. I started out actually working with the tourism department of government. At that time, it was nowhere close to what it is today. When in 1974, there was that fire that burned down the government offices in Phillipsburg, I was selected to do the reconstruction of the administration of the government. At that time, fortunately, copies of most documents were sent to Curacao for safekeeping. So in reconstructing the entire administration of the government of St. Martin, I was able to get copies from Curacao, copies that were here on St. Martin. Having done that, and also having to do the financial reconstruction of government, that's where actually I then went over to the finance department of government. That is where I spent most of my years as a civil servant, climbing the ranks up to department head of the government finance department. And it is during those years, so in other words, in the early 90s, 1990 to be exact, was the first year I ran in politics on St. Martin, on the Democratic Party slate, and at that time, a young civil servant with a passion to be part of the development of our country. Then it was the island territory of St. Martin. I have not abandoned politics since.
Now that you have leave from civil servants work to go into politics, how did you came about to be? Because the Democratic Party was always led by Clem and Claude Watty, and of course Claude Watty was always the biggest leader. And now today you are the leader of the Democratic Party. How that come about?
I have a very, even though I'm saying it myself, a very illustrious political career. And so when I joined the Democratic Party, the late Dr. Claude Watty, along with the late Clem Labega, they were constantly on the search for young St. Martin talent. Before I actually got into the Island Council of St. Martin back in the 90s, before I was commissioner for the Island Territory, it is also part of that history that Claude submitted my name to be Lieutenant Governor of the Island Territory. That proposal was knocked down by the powers that were at the time, because recall that it was the Kingdom government that approved, for example, nominees for Lieutenant Governors, etc. But Claude did not stop there. He also submitted my name to be a minister in the Antillean cabinet, the Netherlands Antillean Cabinet of Ministers. At that time, we were still part of the Netherlands Antilles. And that too did not come to fruition because so-called she was young, she was from St. Martin, and the portfolio that Claude was looking for at the time was the portfolio of telecommunication and transportation. Back in those days, it was the general feeling that those kind of portfolios could have only be held by persons from, for example, Curacao. And you had a situation where the Windward Islands had just a couple of seats in the Antillean Parliament. The most seats were dominated by the then island territory of Curacao. So that did not materialize either. However, in 1994, the Democratic Party was going through one of its lows. It was a low period in the history of the Democratic Party. And it's at that time that I actually took over the leadership of the Democratic Party. Again, we were at a low. I could recall like the day of yesterday when we were in the Weifel building here in Phillipsburg, and together with the membership of the party, with Dr. Claude Watty's family at the event, It was then decided based on a letter that Claude had written about me taking up the leadership of the party, that it was decided by the membership back then of the party that I would take up the leadership. That was in 1994. And I have been leading the party again through its lows and its ups. I have been leading the Democratic Party of St. Martin, and I still do so proudly.
Now that you are the leader, and as you just finished said that you has gone through a trade to reach to the leader of the party, what is the difference now that you are managing the party compared to those years? Is it much more easier? Is it much more difficult?
The issue of political parties, or the phenomenon of political parties today, is much more formalized and regulated. Formerly, any person could submit a list of one or more candidates for an election. Today, given the laws and the changes, especially those following 10-10-10, political parties need to firstly be registered as such. As a political party, you have to be an association. You have to comply with certain criteria that are established by law. So, no, it is much more formalized now. And back then, in those days, as I mentioned earlier, it was a matter of coming with a slate, looking for candidates, submitting your list of candidates. Some parties had a name, others just gave a party a name for an election. So in essence, no. Right now, it is much better regulated and formalized, but also putting a lot of obligations on the party as a structure, as an entity.
Now, you have also been in high positions in government. You just mentioned one as an assistant acting lieutenant governor, and then you also was the latest prime minister, and now presently you're the president of parliament. I don't know how you do it. You also have women movement.
Yes, that's right.
Health and everything. And how does a woman like you find time, especially that have children? I sure that at your home you're also busy too as well. And then you have the other section where the people you want to take care of. How do you able to combine all of that together?
In order to really defend the people, look out for their interests, champion the causes of our country, indeed, everything else, for me at least, is secondary. Everything else is secondary. This is my main occupation. I consider it a calling, and the other matters, family life, family, I try as much as possible to balance it. But for the years that I have been in politics, in public service, that has always been the focus for me. I have no business. I am in no business. I don't believe the two can go together. You know that right now there is a discussion about if the amount of persons residing on St. Martin, in other words, registered on St. Martin, reaches the amount of 60,000 persons, then according to our constitution, the amount of seats in parliament should go from 15 to 17. My position on that is that if all 15 members of parliament, even now, take up their responsibilities seriously and really work 24/7 on behalf of the people, 15 seats, in my opinion, again, are sufficient. We don't need 17. What we need is the 15, or even if we were 13 members, working solely in the interests of the people, full-time. That is what members of parliament are paid for. Currently, too many of our members of parliament have other interests. They have business interests. They themselves are involved in business, and I don't think that this is a good combination.
You was one of the group that also went to Holland to make sure get the status like what we are at this particular point. And I know there was a very hectic moment for you to able to accomplish that. And I don't know if you get much credit for it, but maybe this is the time you could explain it. the people, what was the task for you to be able to accomplish that what we're experiencing today, or you just enjoy?
I don't believe that there are words that can sufficiently describe what it took from me and the small group of persons that worked along with me to accomplish country status that we all enjoy today. You would recall that the referendum for country status, which it turned out to be, that was the choice of the people, had taken place in 2000. And from 2000, maybe even before, as we were preparing for the referendum, I and some others worked tirelessly to achieve that status. Our experiences are many. I remember, for example, just to mention something, I remember sitting at an office in the Netherlands where we had to meet with ministers and state secretaries, and the door was closed in our faces. Remember, we were part of the Netherlands Antilles, so the delegation that had traveled consisted of others as well, and St. Martin could not get an entrance. We could not get an audience. I remember walking through snow and rain coming from late meetings in the Netherlands. I really believe now, looking back, that this should be chronicled. It should be written about because it is an important part of our history. From 2000 up to 2010, we, the small group of persons who were our advisors, who traveled along with us, we worked tirelessly, day in, day out, no sleep, traveling by plane, sleeping on the plane, not having time to get a night's rest before we were into meetings until late hours of the night. So you can imagine the feeling of satisfaction when, for example, in the middle of that period, 2006, we achieved the so-called final conclusions, where it was once and for all documented and agreed to that St. Martin would become country St. Martin. And then it took another amount of years before everything was formalized, written, and agreed upon. It is a time that I look back to with a lot of satisfaction. I know I put tremendous work into it, sacrificed many things, but today we have this status. And I also believe that is why I am so passionate about St. Martin, about this new status, and about us making it work, and making it work in a right fashion. I will not stop encouraging the government, the ministers, members of parliament, persons who wish to get into politics, to treat St. Martin with the love and attention it deserves. That remains my passion. And as long as I am given life and breath, that would be what I would love to do. Whether it's in a position in parliament, in government, there is so much work to be done by those persons who love this country. My slogan, I love St. Martin, I think we all should bear that on our chest and act accordingly.
Now, Sarah, there have been some trying moments for yourself, as for instance, losing some people in your family, which is your mother,
yes,
very close to you, and also your husband,
yes,
right? And I think one of your brothers has
that's right,
passed away. Once again, I'm asking you, I don't know how you do it, because anybody who loses a family like that is very close, is supposed not to have no energy, the family don't care about
yes,
the people,
yeah,
but you still go on. Why?
Because those times in my life, according to me, the way I look at it, they have made me stronger. In fact, I referred earlier in the interview to the year 2006, a great year in terms of achievements, in terms of reaching agreements about St. Martin becoming a country. A great year for me also because remember 2006, I dedicated the new terminal building at our airport, that beautiful new building that was dedicated in the presence of the former Queen of the Dutch Kingdom. And what a moment that was when we dedicated and inaugurated the new terminal building of the Princess Juliana International Airport. But it was also a time that just a couple of weeks thereafter, I rather suddenly lost my husband. Now, my husband, of course, was my husband, but in addition to that, he was my strength. He was my biggest fan, along with my mom. So when I lost him, in the midst of all of it, every so often, I am a little troubled with some guilt feelings as to whether I maybe had missed something that I should have seen, I should have taken into consideration as far as he was concerned, he, my husband. But you know, of course, you'll always have that. After the fact, you wonder, in my case, having had put so much in public service, working for the people, it is something that I don't struggle with necessarily, but it every so often comes back to me. I am fortunate, though, to have had my mother with me until 2015. She was then 94 years old. So that I cherish, and I believe it's because of her that we, her children, are who we are and how we are. And yes, during a period of time while my mom was still alive, she lost 3 children. My mom buried 3 children. I lost 3 siblings. But again, for me, they were my siblings. For my mom, they were her children. She had to bury 3 children in a time span of not even 2 years. And so that kind of strength, I hope that I could have it, that I could develop it, because that type of strength is unbelievable. And if I could be 50% of the woman and possess the strength that my mother and other persons like her peers, our forefathers and our foremothers had, I would be one of the strongest persons on St. Martin and beyond.
Well, you are strong indeed.
Thank you.
Now, my last final question to you. You was Prime Minister, and you currently is President of Parliament. If you happen to be elected back into, let's say, either Minister or Prime Minister, what are some of the things that you would like to help the fellow countries in Martin to get to a more better life and living?
When I am elected, God's willing, when I am elected, because that's what the election is all about. It is electing members of Parliament. Make no mistake, much of the hype that we hear, we see, is about put me into office and I will do this. I will build this. I will make this happen. I am the one you need for our economy to grow. My position on that is that what we need more than anything in this country today is confidence in the leadership of this country. More than anything. The economy, for example, is not something of any one person. If there's no confidence in our country, if you don't have capable persons representing you in Parliament, how could those persons appoint capable persons as ministers? Those are the ones who actually should be doing their work on the basis of a plan. And rather than looking at individual parts of our development, we need a plan addressing all sectors of our country, all sectors of the development of our country. Personally, I believe that we need to continue to pay attention to the social development, to assist the people. the Democratic Party's theme for 2016 is dedicated to the people. However, as I mentioned, these things go hand in hand. But there is a lot out there to be done to assist the people of St. Martin, to bring them up with us as we continue to grow as a country. No one should be left behind. No one in a country like St. Martin should be suffering the way that I know some of our people are suffering and hurting. In order to address these, in addition to the confidence that is necessary in those persons you elect, is an understanding and passion for people, is an understanding and passion for the youth and for the seniors. And so again, while it's just a small part, there are areas for example, our seniors, which need to be addressed, improved, also in the area of youth. And so when you look at all of the different things that need to happen, we need in Parliament 15 capable persons who have a track record of working for the people of St. Martin, so that they then, the members of Parliament, can appoint capable persons to hold the different ministries of government. Blowing my own horn, I want to use the example of the people of St. Martin having elected me to Parliament in 2014, when in 2015, after the ups and downs and the ship jumping, etc., we got the opportunity as the Democratic Party to be part of government. I was able to put forward a candidate who had run on the slate of the Democratic Party in 2014, our current minister, Emily, and look at the job that he has been able to do, because he was there for the people of St. Martin, but put by the Democratic Party and was guided by the Democratic Party in addressing those matters like healthcare that we of the DP feel is so important to the people of St. Martin. A particular project as part of that plan of the Democratic Party is, of course, a new hospital. The people of St. Martin have seen how much flack, how much criticism have come from some corners, especially politicians who had another idea and another intention with a new hospital for St. Martin. Notwithstanding all of that, I mean, he was attacked. The Democratic Party was attacked. Members of my family were attacked. But we remained on course because we knew we were doing the right thing. More transparent than the process to come to a new hospital for St. Martin. Like the DP did it, no one else could have done. Transparent, a contractor was selected, and again, God's willing, with a Democratic Party represented in Parliament and hopefully also in government, we will continue with those items that the people of St. Martin not only need but deserve. And one of those items is, of course, good and affordable health care.
Now, I want to give you the last chance, Sarah, to able to tell the people of St. Martin why should they vote you back into office.
I truly hope that my record as a representative of the people of St. Martin on an executive level, so as the first and only minister who served for 4 complete years, that is what I was able to do as Prime Minister. I have a record in Parliament that whether you're friend or foe, everyone agrees that I have elevated the functioning and the representation in Parliament. What am I coming to the people of St. Martin with and asking them now that we are basically up to the election of September 26, 2016, judge me by what I have done and how I have performed on your behalf. Trust me, because my word to me is sacred. And if I say that within the reality of what we are facing in terms of finances, in terms of you name it, that's why I am being realistic with the people of St. Martin in terms of what I will do. But once given that commitment, like I have done in the past, I will give it everything that I've got. A more simple slogan than the one, she knows and she works. She, in this case, being Sarah. I know what government is all about. I challenge anyone to match their governmental record with mine, and not only knowing, but working. I have and I will continue to do so as long as God gives me breath. So to the people and voters of St. Martin, on September 26, 2016, I count on your support. You need leadership in this country that can exude confidence to you and to all. May God bless this country, St. Martin. And on September the 27th, let us celebrate victory, because the people would have won with voting for the Democratic Party and Sarah Westcott Williams.